This morning's breakfast show also talked about the hui and it talked about the referendum as well. So let's have a bit of a squiz at that, shall we? It's going to start with what the treaty means in a modern New Zealand. Let's have a look at that.
But what ACT is saying is that we need to have a discussion, an honest, open, adult discussion about what the treaty means in modern New Zealand.
Yeah, they're already claiming some concerns with that, though, the Ministry of Justice. So how concerned are you that they've even put together this proposal saying that this is their advice and they're not very happy with it?
Oh, look, I'm not concerned by that at all. What we're asking for in ACT is for there to be a public consultation, which is what this bill proposes, that we bring forward ideas about what the treaty principles actually mean, written down in law, and then we have an open nationwide conversation, which is not what's happened over the last few years. People have felt like our...
Again, remember, this is trying to set in place rule of law about the treaty by mob rule, by referendum, by, you know, and I don't mean to pick on Nelson, it's not about that, but, you know, by my racist Uncle Bob who lives in Nelson, he's going to put into this. Willie Jackson's actually been saying it perfectly for the last 12 months. You know, all the academics that have come before, all the experts, the courts, everyone have put it in a certain way, but you know what? David Seymour knows better. David Seymour knows better than all of those people that have come before, that all of New Zealand need to see this in a different way.
Country's really divided. What having this bill go through a select committee process will do is allow for all New Zealanders to be able to have their say and talk openly about how we can be a united country. Do we want to be a country that says, based on your ancestry or what you may look like, you end up with different rights under the law? Or do we want to be a united country?
Or do we want to be the son or daughter of a farmer where you have different rights under the law, like getting into med school? You see? It's why when they base it in race and nothing else, it's racism. When they put it, when you want, so hang on, you want special rights because of your disability. That, you know, I think we should all be the same under the, what, you want special rights because of your age? No, I think, you know, I just think that we should all be all the same under the law. When they base it only in race, it's racist.
Country where everybody has the same rights no matter what their background is, because I talk to a lot of people in the public who don't feel like we are a united country, and I think that's what we deserve.
Okay.
Yeah, and why aren't we a united country? Possibly because of the kind of bullshit you're putting out there. So Queen Chloe then came in and had a chat about the advice, some advice on being I can't read what I've written. Let's see what Chloe had to say.
I mean, this was free and frank advice from Ministry of Justice officials, making it abundantly clear that the government hasn't undertaken any consultation with the most directly impacted communities here, those being iwi Māori. We also have seen some massive mobilisation, you know, 10,000 at the hui over the weekend, as called by the Māori King, demonstrating that there is a real want, actually, for this constitutional conversation, as the ACT Party is saying that they want to see happen, just not in the incredibly reductive and prescriptive way that this Treaty Principles Bill is moving forward with. Because what that bill seeks to do is to preemptively define what those principles are, as the advice says, in complete contravention of the text of Te Tiriti, as well as the principles as established by 35 years of jurisprudence, as well as potentially in contravention of our international obligations. So frankly, it's a mess, and New Zealanders should expect better from our government when it comes to leading in this space. And I would have expected that the parties who've been calling for this unity and calling for this conversation would have turned up to the conversation over the weekend.
Okay, look.
Such a bloody brilliant point, that one. Where the heck were they? Where were you guys? You guys want to have the conversation. There was the ability to have some of this conversation in the weekend, and you went, oh, it's only 10,000 people, whilst you're going to an event with 7,000 people. Or you're Christopher Luxon, you're going, oh, it's not a political event. Groundswell, I bet you that's a political event. Julian Batchelor bullshit, that's a political event. But you think 10,000 people at a hui talking about what's happening with Māori and the Crown is not a political event? Don't buy it. I don't buy it. Right, now I told you we'd talk about some of the other stories that came out in the weekend. One of them was Golriz Ghahraman and what happened there. So let's have a look, because at breakfast this morning, Chloe was asked about it, as was Brooke, and this is what they had to say.
This is a deeply sad and awful situation, and I'm not going to comment on the details of that case because obviously, as our co-leaders made abundantly clear, it is currently before the police and everybody is communicating and operating as should be throughout that process. But I think what this obviously speaks to is a broader pattern, which many commentators have already kind of shone the spotlight onto, which is that our parliament is not an environment that is conducive to getting the best out of people. But I think more so than that, the kind of soundbite media environment and landscape that all of us exist in, particularly when you add on social media to that, is such that I think politicians are frequently treated as concepts, not as human beings who are fallible, who have feelings and are capable of making mistakes and potentially coming back from those. So to that effect, I think hopefully this should call into question what kind of institution or environment we want to try and get the best out of people in order to make the best possible laws to govern all New Zealanders.
Brooke, you're on the other side now, being in government. How does that make you feel about what pressure you may face with the public's opinion of you and how they react to things that you do or decisions that you make?
Yeah, look, I think Parliament is by its nature a stressful place. Nobody's going to question that. But what I think it's stressful for is because we are responsible for all the decisions that govern every action of someone's life from when they're born to when they die.
Just we're responsible for every action that governs people's life from when they're born to where they die. Is she aware what party she's in? You know, this party that doesn't want government involvement, but now she's saying that they're responsible for everything to do with your life? Am I libertarian? Get government out of my life? Or is she just showing behind the curtain of what ACT really believes? They actually want to control everything that goes on in your life.
So, you know, what your kids will learn at school, whether or not your actions are criminal or not, whether you can drive, you can smoke, whether you can have a firearm. I mean, there's a lot of emotion that will go into every person knowing that the government will or will not make a decision that affects their lives. So there will be emotion there. But I think Chloe is right. We do have to remember politicians are human too and do have stresses in their own lives. But I can completely understand why people have so much emotion, might take to social media, come to emails, to MPs. But I don't want to see us get into a point where we're talking about restricting access and ability to talk with your local politicians. It's really important that we're in the community, we're listening to people, we're accessible. But yes, we are human too.
So I had some conversations, some interactions with people over my break to do with Golriz and what I was thinking and what people were thinking I was thinking. And I started off by being pretty clear that, you know, this is an accusation and we'll see what happens and we'll address. And that was too much for some people. They couldn't bear the idea of someone saying, we'll wait for all the facts to come in. A bunch of people started bringing out Sam Uffindell. And by the way, if you were following me on Twitter and you would have seen some of that, I didn't mention Sam Uffindell at all. There was a particular person who brought up Sam Uffindell and saying, I hope you were as gracious to him. And the answer is yes, we were actually. The only time we talked about Sam Uffindell, I actually went and found it to make sure we were right, was the day there was a news article that said it was the worst mistake of his life. And then we started talking about it. So yes, very, very much so. So now that it's not kind of all finished yet because there's still accusations and I don't know if there's officially charges. I think, there are, aren't there? Because there was a talk about a 43-year-old woman. So this is now my thoughts around this. If she is found guilty of shoplifting, she should get the same penalty that everybody else does. If we're all the same under the law, she should get the same that everybody else does. And can I tell you that if she gets the same that everybody else does, she's already paid a far, far, far higher price than anybody else will. Because I went to community law and had a bit of a look at, first-time offenders with shoplifting. And this is what it says. If it's your first offence, the police will often simply give you a formal warning without charging you. They call these pre-charge warnings. For a first offence, right, you will often get a warning. For a second offence, you'll probably be charged, but you may then qualify for the police diversion scheme. This is where the police agree to drop the charges against you if you admit responsibility and satisfy some conditions. To get diversion, you will have to admit the offence, but you'll be kept out of the court system and won't get a criminal record. If you can't get diversion and you are convicted in court, this first shoplifting conviction is likely to be dealt with a fine or community-based like community work. Alternatively, the judge may order you to come up for sentence if called upon during a set time, usually 6 months to 9 months. Now, I know there's a difference there with the. I'm still saying alleged because we don't know exactly what's happened, but the alleged value of what the accusations of the shoplifting is. But most people in their first shoplifting get a slap on the wrist. So if she gets a slap on the wrist, then you watch the right Twitter sphere lose its fucking mind and saying, oh, privilege, oh, this, but that's normally the first situation. Normally, it's a formal warning. Second is normally some kind of diversion, or if conviction, some kind of fine or community service. And yet, look, I'm agreeing, Kira, alleged, because there's nothing being convicted yet, but there have been charges later, I believe that's correct. So in other words, what I'm saying is, if she is found guilty of it, I would expect that she would get the same penalty that anyone else whose name wasn't known got in the same circumstances. That's what I would expect. And from the looks of the law, it may well be a warning, or it may be diversion, or it may be conviction with a fine or a community service, like, community work type punishment. That would be the expectations. Now, I know that if you steal over $1,000, it can technically be up to 7 years in prison, and that I would be really surprised if anyone, as a first offence with an exemplary record, would actually get that, obviously. So that's my position now. People wanted to know. My position is, if she is found guilty of committing this crime, or crimes, plural, then she should get exactly what anyone else who has done what she has done would get, no matter her being a politician or not. Because if she gets exactly what they've all got, maybe it is just a warning. She's also lost a lot more when it comes to her work. If that happened to a petrol station employee, I'm not saying nicking from his petrol station, but like out there, and very good chance he doesn't lose work, doesn't lose income. He gets a warning and he goes on with his or her own way. So that would be my expectation. My expectation is that she should get, if found guilty, exactly what anyone else would get. And I still say to you that she's already suffered a penalty far worse than most people would ever get anyway.